Good afternoon. I'm Sharita Cole-Brown, and welcome to this session of NAMI Maryland's conference for 2021. Our presenters today are talking about strengthening relationships. Specifically, how do we strengthen our communication skills? The presenters that you will meet today are Deneice Valentine and Deborah Handy, who have a whole lot of experience in this. So please pay close attention, and I'm sure you will learn some fabulous things. Deborah.
Hello, everyone. I'm hoping that you will enjoy this session because it's a lot to know, and it's a lot that we as the presenters want to make sure that we cover everything that will help you. So I just want to say welcome to our workshop on strengthening relationships, which was adapted from the NAMI Peer-to-Peer Recovery Education Course 2018 edition. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. My name is Deborah Handy, the NAMI Peer-to-Peer Program Leader, and Deneice Valentine is my co-presenter. Today we will cover main topics: types of relationships, healthy and unhealthy relationships, self-appreciation, expressing needs, and using I statements and goals. Next slide, please. Go back to types of relationship, please. Types of relationship, go all the way back. There we go. Types of relationship. In our lives, we have many different types of relationships. Next slide, please. We have acquaintance, co-workers or colleagues, care providers, interest groups, close friends, family, romantic and intimate relationships, acquaintance, people you recognize who recognize you, but you don't necessarily know much about one another, co-workers or colleagues, people you work with on a job, a paid job, volunteer job, or while serving on a committee. You may or may not know these people as well. Care providers provide help, support, often through a specific arrangement or a professional mental health or medical services. Examples include housekeeping, peer support specialists. Interest groups share a common interest or hobby. Examples, craft course clubs, sport teams, religious groups, online or in-person support groups, close friends, people who you do know well. You care about them and they care about you. Family, include people you are connected to by blood, marriage, or family you choose. Sometimes close friends might be considered family, even if they are not directly related. I'm quite sure a lot of people deal with that. Romantic and intimate relationship. Romantic or intimate relationships involve a deep emotional connection in or sexual intimacy. Next slide, please. Healthy and unhealthy relationships. Relationships are a necessary part of healthy living, but there's no such thing as a perfect relationship. Relationships from acquaintance to romance have the potential to enrich our lives and add to our enjoyment of life. However, these same relationships can cause discomfort and sometimes even cause harm. Next slide, please. A healthy relationship is one that brings more happiness than stress into our lives. No relationship is perfect, but healthy relationship make both people feel respected, supported, and safe. Healthy relationships are characterized by mutual respect, trust, intent, and honesty. Respect. Each person value who the other person is, understands the other person's burdens, and value their belief and opinion. Trust. Partners trust in each other and are comfortable doing things separately and respecting each other's privacy. Honesty. Being truthful and open with your partner and being able to talk together about what you both want without feeling the response or if they will be judged or you be judged. Individuality, neither partner compromises who they are, and each have their own identity with space and friendship in the relationship. Next slide, please. Taking responsibility. You and your partner are both responsible for your own actions and words. You both avoid putting blame on each other and own up when you do sometimes something wrong. You both avoid taking things out on each other when you're upset and both try to make positive changes to better your relationship. While in a healthy relationship, we, for example, taking care of ourselves would involve good eating and sleeping habits and physical activities that usually keep us motivated and keep us moving in life. Some examples are manipulation, signs of unhappy. Next slide, please. Signs of unhealthy relationships. It brings more stress than happiness to our lives, can lead to problems in other areas of life. Some examples are manipulation. One partner influences the other without them realizing it. This can include ignoring you until they get their own way, making you feel guilty or responsible for their actions, making you feel like everything is your fault and threatening to hurt themselves or others if you don't do as they say or stay with them. They may also use gifts and apologize to influence your decision or to apologize for their behavior. Disrespect. Your partner makes fun of your opinions and interests or purposely destroys something that is important to you. Betrayal. When your partner is deceitful, hides important things from you, or threatens to make your private matters public to control you. Control. When your partner makes all the decisions and tells you what to do, what to wear, and who to spend time with. They may also be in charge of all the finances and insist that you account for all the money you have spent or force you to hand over any money you have to them. He or she may also try to isolate you from your friends and from your family. While in an unhealthy relationship, we neglect ourselves or other people, persons. The activities we enjoy must justify actions. Forced to have sex and or refuse to use safe sex methods like privacy. Do not settle arguments fairly. Yell or become physically violent and feel control. Next slide, please. If you suspect your relationship is abusive, there are resources you can assess. Many relationships have a combination of healthy and unhealthy characteristics. When we recognize unhealthy characteristics in a relationship, we have an opportunity to make changes that benefit both parties. Or we may decide to end a relationship that isn't good for us and any longer for us to deal with. Like many other things, relationships need to be maintained. This applies to all types of relationships, including work, friendship, family, romantic relationship. Each relationship is most likely a combination of healthy and unhealthy characteristics. Next slide, please. Self-appreciation. Relationships include our relationships with ourselves. Having low self-esteem or feeling that we don't have value can make it hard to acknowledge the things that we do well in life. By learning to appreciate what we do well, we can remind ourselves that we are worthy of the efforts and respect of others. Every day, take a few minutes to acknowledge what you do well in life. These can be little things or big things, or even compliments you receive. Appreciation, positive things about ourselves is a skill that takes practice. Deneice, you will continue on. Deneice will cover some communication skills that can help you maintain healthy relationships. Deneice.
Next slide, please. Good communication skills help with the give and take that happen in healthy relationships. Telling another person how we feel and what we need can provide balance. Here are some tips to help you set up effective communications. First, check the context. Rather than relying on one strategy, it may be more effective to have a variety of strategies that are applied as needed depending on a situation. Before speaking, it may be helpful to assess how is your recipient feeling. Are they upset about something else or relaxed and open to having a conversation? Is this a good time to bring up an important issue? Is the recipient ready and able to hear what you have to say? Are you aware of certain sensitivities based on yours or the recipient's past? Again, the purpose is to successfully deliver a message in the way that it is intended. Check your own emotional level. Are you irritated about something unrelated to the person with whom you're talking? Is something in the present triggering something from your past? If so, you may unintentionally throw a speedball and knock the person over with force. Is that what you intended? Maybe take a breath and ground yourself before talking. What is your message? Is your message clear or are you sending a mixed message? A mixed message is like throwing two balls in opposite directions and expecting the recipient to choose the right one. For example, if someone says, "I'm fine," but their body language conveys upset, their arms are crossed, their face looks upset, and they're not talking, then what is that person really saying? What should the recipient do? Go away, move towards, give space, or ask another question? A mixed message is confusing and a setup for miscommunication and further upset. You should also pay attention to how you package your message. When you send a fragile vase in a poorly packaged box, it will likely arrive cracked or even shattered into pieces. Similarly, if you have a sensitive message, be thoughtful of how you package it. You may intend to share an important feeling, but if it is packaged as blaming, accusing, or threatening, the conversation will likely quickly devolve. A safer way is to focus on how you are feeling using an I statement. I feel hurt when you don't answer the phone or leave the dishes in the sink. This is in contrast to a you statement. You never answer the phone. Or why do you leave dishes in the sink when you know it upsets me? Can you see how the latter will likely lead to a fight? Be a good listener. Maybe even more important than delivering good communication is having a good recipient. Listen not only to words, but also to the tone of their voice and body language, what emotions they are using. As a guideline, if you read the other person's feelings, you will vastly improve your communication skills. This is having empathy and working towards understanding the other person's point of view. When people feel heard, they will much more likely be open to hearing you too. Another guideline is to reflect what you hear the other person say. This not only is confirmation for you that you heard it correctly, but very satisfying for the person who delivered the communication. So in summary, communication requires at least two people, the sender and the receiver. Communication is only effective if it is received in the way it is intended. Next, we're going to cover how expressing our needs and using I statements can help us in our relationships. Next slide, please. It helps us to stop, think about, and communicate our needs in a relationship. If we don't know what we need, we can't ask for it. Since people don't know what we need until we tell them, expressing our needs is an important communication skill in any relationship. If we don't ask for what we need, we probably won't get it. Next slide, please. What are needs? Our needs in a relationship are the things we won't compromise on. Whether we could or should compromise is irrelevant. At this point in our lives, we've made the decision that these things are critical to our well-being. Needs can be many things. Some example of mine are help with something practical, such as a ride or a household chore. Support and encouragement that gives me an emotional boost. Companionship, having someone nearby or on call. Sharing information, boundaries, or limits. Next slide, please. Here are some examples of some questions that can help you think about your needs. Number one, what are some things that are critical to your well-being? For me, it's a good support network, self-help groups, faith-based organizations, community resources, and emergency mental health resources. What practical help do you need? The help others give us to accomplish what we need to do, such as give us a ride to the doctor or help with childcare or cook us a meal, is very vital to our accomplishing our goals. What kind of emotional support or encouragement do you need? These are the things that others do to make us feel loved and cared for. Talk with us when we are upset, encourage us to work on our goals, and allow us to vent when there's an issue. What activities would go better or be more fun if you had company? When considering this, you should focus on your strengths. You may want to take art, dance, or craft lessons, even music lessons. What is something you need a person to not do or to stop doing? For example, I may need you to listen and not interrupt. Next slide, please. Expressing our needs is telling someone what our expectations are. Even if we think it is obvious, other people will only know what we need if we tell them. There is no guarantee the other person is willing or able to give us what we ask for. We can only control our words and action, not what others say and do. However, if we don't express our needs, they probably won't be met. It can be hard to say what we need, no matter how big or small the need is. Let's look at some steps you can take to get started. Next slide. Plan what you're going to say. It is easy to complicate the message by adding too many words or bringing up examples from the past. By planning what we're going to say, we can keep the message simple and direct. You could even write it down. This will help you stay focused and not get sidetracked. Use a calm, even voice. Your message is more likely to be heard. It's hard to pay attention to when someone is yelling at us. Tell the other person why the need is important to you. Say something like, I feel upset when the refrigerator door is left open. State what you need the other person to do. It would help me if you close the refrigerator door. Actively listen to what the other person says. We've placed ourselves in a vulnerable position by asking someone to do something. If they don't immediately understand our requests, it's important to stay open, receptive, and continue to help them understand. Sometimes we have to agree to disagree. It's all about keeping the communication going. Next slide, please. A communication skill that can be helpful when expressing our needs is called I statements. Sometimes when we express our needs, the other person can feel blamed or criticized. Using I statements help us avoid this problem. An I statement explains how we feel and what we need. I statements are specific, direct comments about what we think, feel, or want. When using I statements, we take full responsibility for our feelings and opinions. We say what we mean, and we don't undermine it by going back and forth. We speak in a tone of voice that is soft but confident. That's all we do. We don't explain in great detail. We don't apologize for what we're saying, and we do not repeat ourselves. I statements allow us to express how we feel without making judgmental comments towards the other person. I statements use the following format. I feel a specific emotion when there's a specific action. Be careful not to blame or criticize the other person. For example, if we say, I feel that you are ungrateful, this is not an I statement, since it does not explain how we feel and suggests the other person is the problem. You would say something like, I feel anxious when we make last-minute plans, instead of, you never give me enough notice when we make plans. Or you would say, I feel hurt when I only hear about my mistakes, instead of, you're always criticizing me. Can't you stop 1 minute for 1 minute? I statements are only one communication skill. And then again, it takes practice for it to feel natural.
Thank you, Deneice. That's a lot of communication that we take for granted. And sometimes we say things and we don't realize what we're saying. So that was a lot of important information that we can use now and in the future. So we're going to go on to goal setting. We would like to challenge you to set goals, to practice some of the communication skills mentioned so that you can strengthen your relationship. Set small goals each week, each month. It's up to you to know how you want to meet your goals. Don't reach for the sky, just reach for that goal. Next slide, please. To increase your success of achieving goals, make sure you want to make the change rather than thinking you should make the change. You're working on behavior under your control. Next slide, please. Having the ability to control a behavior allows you to change it. The easy way to determine it something is a behavior is to use this sentence. Go to the corner for the next 2 minutes and you will need 2 yes answers for it to be a behavior. Next slide, please. Be specific as you can with your goal. Don't leave anything to chance. To increase your success of achieving goal, make sure you want to make the change rather than thinking you should make the change. You're working on a behavior under your control. We're going to invite you to set a relationship goal for this week. We have given you some ideas to practice. For instance, are you interested in working on a relationship or appreciating yourself more? Is there a need you would like to share with someone? Do you want to spend some time practicing I statements so they feel more natural when you use them? This is the beginning of a new relationship with self. Next slide, please. Staying connected with healthy relationships is vital to our well-being. We would like to discuss some interesting topics with you, and we're going to put them out there, and we hope that you might want to put something in the chat so we can discuss it. And the first one is, what might get in the way of connecting with people in some of these categories? Acquaintance, co-workers or colleagues, care providers, interesting groups, close friends, family, romantic and intimate relationships. Can I get some participation in any of these categories? I see one chat.
It takes about 20 seconds.
Okay. All right, let me give you another one. What things do you feel that you can do to stay connected in any of these categories? What things do you do to stay connected? What is going on with you today? Could be something that you're staying connected with. What are you dealing with in some of these, not just looking at these categories, but thinking inside of yourself. Have other people done something to help you stay connected? Could be friends, could be family, could be co-workers. Sometimes we get stressed. We have someone who can help us.
Are there any questions for us on any of the material?
I see 6 chats.
There is a question. How do I deal with more conflict-driven friends, ones who seem to thrive on conflict with others?
Want to answer that one, Deneice?
One of the things that I do is I try to divert them from the conflict. I like to have peaceful conversations with individuals. And if the conversation isn't peaceful, I don't engage. So I try to communicate that in that fashion. And I find myself in less conflict-driven relationships. They sort of fall away.
And I know one that we spoke about is saying having a calm voice. I have learned when individuals start yelling, I talk in a calm voice instead of just saying, why don't you bring your voice down? Why don't you stop howling at me? And a lot of times I talk in a calm voice to get something across in between all of that negativity or all that screaming. And it works. Not saying it will work all the time, but it works.
And someone suggested that you engage with people and ask what's going on with them. The example is checking in on a coworker after a long and perhaps difficult day.
That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. And that makes that coworker feel so much wanted. And it makes you feel good as well because you are looking after that individual. And that also brings up that coworker's self-esteem and your self-esteem.
Another listener suggested that you maintain communication with long distance friends, and that's especially important right now during COVID.
Yes, because you don't want to live in isolation. That's not good for your relationships, and it's not good. It's not healthy for your mental health. So maintaining communication right now in this time period is extremely important.
What strategies? I'm sorry, let me go back. This person wants to know strategies to use to understand weakness in their relationships with significant people in their life before they become a serious problem, such as when one partner periodically criticizes the other partner's contribution to the relationship, but it then denies it when confronted about it. So what strategies would you ladies suggest?
That's one that we did discuss, but be very careful because they can get involved in an abusive relationship because it sounds like somebody who wants to be in control. And so the strategy is to listen and then give your key point. And if they don't care to share that, then I guess it would be better to be quiet for a while and then come back. And hopefully the two can talk and civilize. Deneice, do you have anything to share with that?
Well, that's one of the signs of an unhealthy relationship, is when the partner is criticizing another partner's contributions to the relationship, or thinks that one person's ideas are not as important as theirs. So that's a sign of an unhealthy relationship, that one may want to get out in the open and use I statements to get that out in the open and get a more healthy dialogue going on. I personally, that's what I would try to do. I would use the I statements in that instance. I would say, I feel hurt when you criticize my contributions to this relationship. It would help me if you would take seriously my contributions to the relationship. And I've had to use that before.
Yeah, a lot of people tend to be selfish and only hear what they want to hear and say what they want to say. So you have to speak up. But again, hopefully with the I statement, you can get across, which make that individual listen to what you're saying.
How would we learn to speak up to the other person when we are not the calm person?
That's a good one.
That takes practice.
Yeah. You know how we talked about going to a corner for a while? Well, you might have to go to a corner for a while.
That takes practice. And you would probably have to, I would probably plan what I'm going to say, and I might even write it down, because sometimes with me, it sticks in my head better if I write it down. But I would go through those steps, those communication steps that I mentioned earlier. Let me see if I can find them. I would go through those communication steps that I mentioned earlier. It helps to make sure that you are, you know what mood your recipient is in. You check your own emotional level, because if you are at a point where you're ready to scream, maybe you want to sit back for a little while and not say anything and calm down and ground yourself before you start talking. Decide what your message is, and you want to plan what you have to say, maybe even write it down, and determine what it is that you need from the other person, and use your calmest voice possible when speaking to that person. It's on, let's look at slide 18. Bruce, if you can find slide 18. Yes, that's the slide. So plan what you're gonna say, write it down, use a calm, even voice, and tell the other person why this need is important to you, and state what you need the other person to do. So you have to know what it is you need, why it's important, and what you want the other person to do. And then actively listen to what the other person says to you. I hope that answered the question.
I think so. I think it did.
And I want to go back to the previous question when the person is denying that they're criticizing the other person's contributions. One of the things that we want in a healthy relationship is honesty and trust. So that's another thing that I would personally explain to the partner, is that, you know, I value honesty and trust, and I need you to be honest with me so that I can trust you. Yeah.
And another thing, by talking in a calm voice, telling the other person what your needs are. I know when I used to do it, I want to throw it back at the individual, and I want to be the one to win. And it's not all about winning, it's all about listening to each other. So I learned to listen and got more force.
Yeah, I had to learn to shut up. I'm a talker, you know, and I can come back with my with the response. So I had to learn to shut up and listen deeply. And I had to learn how to have peaceful conversations. That's a learned skill. It is not something that comes naturally. That's something you have to practice, and you learn how to do it. So these are just small steps that we have given you towards that goal of learning how to have peaceful conversations and how to communicate effectively with your others and that you are in relationships with. Are there any more questions?
When we have up there, what things do you do to stay connected? That also is talking about what do you do to improve upon your self-esteem or give yourself a pat on the back. Is there anyone who cared to say something about that? I know I usually go to a movie, which I cannot do at the moment, but it was just the idea of having a little peace with myself and just enjoy a day of it.
You know, one of the important things in any relationship is self-appreciation. Taking the time to appreciate yourself is important, because if you see value in yourself, you most likely are going to model that value that you see in yourself. And the other person will recognize your value as a human being and as a partner. And people find it hard. I know I do. I find it hard to appreciate myself because we're taught to be modest from the time we go to school all the way to adulthood. We're taught to be modest and not to so-called brag on ourselves. But I had to learn how to appreciate myself coming from a position of low self-esteem. I would stand in the mirror as I brushed my teeth in the morning, and I said, Deneice, you are so beautiful. You are so wonderful. And if you say that out loud enough times, you begin to believe it. I began to believe that I had a life that was worthy of living, even though I had a mental health condition. So when we say self-appreciation is important, we really mean it. It is the cornerstone to good communication. It's knowing thyself.
And it takes away from always thinking negativity. We always look at the bad things about ourselves. We have to turn it around and look at the good about ourselves. And like Deneice said, talking to yourself in front of a mirror, it does make you smile. And eventually it makes you feel so good that being around with your friends, your coworkers, and family, they'll be wondering, why are you so chipper? And believe it or not, it tends to come from you to them and make them feel good as well.
It's infectious. I think that's all the time we have for today.
If there is any other questions, Sharita or Bruce, let us know before we say goodbye to everyone.
There is nothing showing in the chat. If
Okay.
someone wants to do a last minute question, they should.
Okay.
Now.
Okay. Any more?
Not seeing
No.
anything.
All right. Well, I just want to say from myself and Deneice that we truly hope that you have learned a lot from this workshop. And always remember, write everything down and use the most of what you know that is good for you, and work on your self-esteem, because it takes a lot and eventually it becomes a part of you. And don't forget to calm the words down so that you can get your point across and learn to listen. Deneice, do you have anything you want to say?
No,
Well,
I surely don't.
Before you,
everyone.
before
Wait a
you
minute, Dan.
disconnect,
Okay.
Ryan Wright wanted you to know
Okay.
that he really appreciated the talk and he wanted to say
good.
thank you.
Oh, good. Thank you, Ron. And we hope and truly that you'll come to our next workshop. If you enjoyed this one very well, and go to the next workshop that's on the conference program. And do have a great weekend and do have a great evening.